This is episode 15 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. Hey, Andrew Hines here, and I'm going to introduce today's guest, Gary Spencer-Smith. Gary is a real estate investor for the last 10 years. He's located on the west side of Canada right now on Vancouver Island, which is a very expensive market, very nice province as well. Gary has been doing a lot of buy and holds using joint ventures, and today we're going to talk a lot of shop about investing in small markets, about managing contractors, about doing joint ventures, all the good stuff that should be in a toolkit for the average investor. Before we get into that, I wanted to make another announcement about the upcoming real estate get-together that I'm having in Burlington, Ontario. So for the friends that are listening who are in the Greater Toronto area, Greater Hamilton area, and would like to attend, come out, meet me, meet fellow investors in the area, have a beer, have some appetizers, and just talk shop. It's a great way to help each other grow. And there's no charge for entry or anything like that. Just order off the menu as you please. I'm really looking forward to it. We've got several confirmed already. And I would really love to put some faces to names of people who have contacted me. So if you can make it, by all means, please reach out to me on Instagram or Facebook at the Andrew Hines and let me know and I will get you the details. I'll add you to the group. So without further ado, here is the episode with Gary Spencer-Smith. Hello and welcome to the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. I have Gary Spencer-Smith. Did I say that right?
Yep, that was right. Yeah.
Gary Spencer-Smith is on the show, and Gary is a real estate investor, done quite a few things, but I'm actually just meeting him for the first time. So rather than me introduce him, I'm gonna let him do the spiel. So Gary, first off, thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, you're more than welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Well, why don't you start off by telling me a little bit about yourself? What are you into?
So I'll give you my quick, my 30-second elevator pitch. So basically, I've been investing roughly for about 10 years full-time as a profession, where it's actually like supporting my life. It's what I live off. My history personally was I used to be in the Royal Navy, came from England originally. That was the accent. Served all over the world. Got to over 100 countries, got a good perspective on life, and then got injured in service and pensioned out and moved to Canada in 2007. And then 2009 was when I really started investing full-time. Since then, I've done lease options, rent-to-owns, buy and hold, buy, reno, refinance, getting into commercial now. So I've kind of dabbled in quite a lot of stuff, but I guess about 7 years ago, I found something that was really working well where I was. And I just kind of stuck at that for a good few years. And that's what really accelerated me to where I am today.
So what's the thing that was working really well?
In my town here, I mean, we all kind of go down, well, me personally, and I think a lot of people I speak to, they'll go on various courses and you'll learn things and try them. And I was kind of dabbling like that around real estate. And for me, I found in the area where I invest on Vancouver Island, it was better to buy something. And the numbers that were at the time, we're buying it for about 140, 160. You're spending about 50, 60 on a renovation, putting a suite in, and then renting it out. So you're really hitting that 1% rule. So for every 100,000 spent, I was getting 1,000 of income, like very easily. So I kind of did that, stuck to that, and did that consistently for quite a few years. Did quite a few joint ventures doing that as well. Mm-hmm. And then, time will help you out as well, and, markets appreciation and all that, which I wasn't buying for that. I was just finding something that made good cash flow that I could live off. So
you're creating the cash flow. I was about to say 140 to 160. Where are you buying for 140 to 160?
So nowhere now. But at the time it was in the Alberni Valley on Vancouver Island.
Okay. So
the nearest big town, I guess, I say big town, it's not really a city, but was Nanaimo. Okay. And they were about an extra 100 to 150,000 on purchase price, but you're only getting about $50 to $100 extra of income. So it didn't, in my mind, it just didn't make sense. Go ahead.
So you were doing a lot of conversions, you were saying?
Yeah. So we were buying the house, gutting the house down to studs, and then putting a suite in, redoing all the plumbing, electrical, like literally a full reno on the house.
Okay. That's interesting. And did you find that the municipality there was just pro conversions? They wanted the secondary dwellings?
There was no rules. So when I first started, there was literally zero rules. I don't want to say it was the Wild West. I mean, there was building code, and when I was looking at it, I made sure that I did everything to the building code. So the smoke alarms, the fire separation, the noise, the separate driveways, and I wasn't doing it because that was the rules. I was doing it because in my head I was thinking, what are going to be the arguments in this house? And it's going to be, oh, the heat's too cold, heat's too thick, someone's parking the drive. So I was trying to alleviate the problems before that happened, and it just so happened by doing that, I met all the building code and learned about things along the way. Then in 2014, 15, the city brought in some rules, and they just adopted rules from another city. And basically all of my suites at that time became illegal. So it was I've been petitioning the city for years, and they were just like, well, we're just putting some rules in place because there is nothing, and there's a lot of unsafe housing out there, which I understand that fully. And when they brought them in, it was what they said was, anyone who's already had suites in place can get them inspected, and you'll get like a permit to say, okay, even though you don't conform, where there's a suite and it's still safe. That was how they pitched it. And it's kind of stayed that way for quite a few years, until about the last 2 years, and we've got a new bylaw inspector, and now they're really clamping down, but they're also changing the rules to suit what the town has. So I think in the next while, I'll see them all become legal again, because the only reason they're legal is I don't live upstairs. That's the only thing that doesn't make them legal.
Oh, okay. So that's what they want?
Yeah, so I sell the house to you and you live upstairs, it's legal. You sell it back to me as an investor, now it's illegal. So it's kind of a silly rule. We're in a housing crisis. I mean, we got less than 1% vacancy. There's no affordable housing. So they're kind of in talks about how to get this going. So,
okay. So just for context, the community you're investing in, what's the population of the immediate community?
20,000 in the area.
About 20,000.
Yeah.
And then is there a greater area where there's a population in that pocket, or not really?
That is our 20,000. There's 12 in the downtown, and then there's 20 in the surrounding. But the surrounding is like 15 minutes. It's not like an urban sprawl. We're kind of blocked by a valley. And you drive an hour every direction to get to the next town.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess you would classify that as sort of a smaller market.
Oh yes, for sure. It is a small market.
Okay. Now, this is always an interesting topic to me when I see people investing in smaller markets. And there's another follow-up question I have about the legalities of your conversions and what's happened. But how do you have comfort investing in smaller markets? What do you look for, and what makes you comfortable?
No, I'm a member of the Real Estate Investment Network, and they have their top towns and all this, and every group has their own things that they look for. I mean, we have lots of drivers, influencers that affect markets. For me, when I was buying, at first, honestly, it was just because it was near where I lived. And I wasn't going to just invest. I was going to work on my business and in my business to generate revenue. So if jobs needed fixed, I would go fix them myself when I started, and then I would bill that out back to the house. So I was kind of generating a revenue for myself so I could shift out of that job. Okay. But you've got to find what is working, because you can't just take something that works in a top town and apply it to a small town. You've got to really find a little niche that works. And that's how I found those suites actually worked for me in this market. The tenant demographics are different, and you've got to be willing to accept what those demographics offer in a town. Because in a small town, you can't pick from lower, middle, and upper class. I mean, for me, I grade my tenants in my properties. So I'll grade them A, B, and C. A is like your show home, your show tenants, the perfect professionals, maybe it's the dog between them. That would be your A tenants. And then you see tenants are the people that live check to check, but they're still, so you may have to, if they're between jobs, because we're a logging town as well. So if it was a logging person I'm renting to and all of a sudden it's quiet, then you might have to carry them, not for a month, but for a few weeks till they figure their stuff out. So you've got to be willing to play like that in the market. And some people don't want that. They want like the first of the month, notice is given. If they don't pay, they're out. Whereas you have to have flexibility, I think, in working with C tenants.
You brought up an interesting point there that you don't have the whole selection. So you said you're dealing mostly with C tenants. Was that because it's a logging based town?
Pretty much, yeah. We have a lot of the demographics of this town. We have a lot of the First Nation bands from the West Coast. This is their hub where their governments are. Okay. So even though some are treatying out, so there's a lot of money being spent at the minute in economic development by the First Nations. And I tell people, it's a small town, but it's not going anywhere, because we have 14 to 17 First Nations bands that have all their stuff here and all the things that support that, all the schooling, the healthcare, all that kind of stuff. That's not leaving town because they're not leaving. It's not like a TELUS or a corporation that's going to move. And then because it's a working class town as well, yes, the C-type tenants. So when I'm getting kitchens, I don't buy an MFR, Home Depot pre-packed kitchen that's, as soon as it gets wet, it expands and you're done. I'll buy like a solid wood custom kitchen. And then that way, if someone sticks a knife in it, you can fill it, sand it. Like, you've got to think, how can I repair this? What if this breaks? Things like that. So it's, you might spend a bit more, but then you're getting the durability out of something.
It's such an interesting topic. We could probably talk about this forever because I've been catering to the A type tenant, worst case a B. I've done a lot of student rentals, high-end student rentals where mom and dad are paying. They're rough on stuff. So I'll usually, but I like to make it nice anyway. So I'll do quartz on the counter. I do pretty nice vanities and stuff that you can paint them if you need to. They're painted, paint finish. So yeah, it lets you touch them up if you need to. Now I'm kind of transitioning gears because I've been doing that in London, Ontario. Yeah. But the market's gone so crazy that cash flow sort of ran away. And it's already far away from home for me. Like, my closer to home is Burlington, if you're familiar with that.
Yeah. No, I was just up in Toronto last week. So.
So I'm looking at a market called Welland. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Welland and St. Catharines area.
St. Catharines. Yeah, they just got to go there, right?
Yeah, well, it's in process. Yeah. So there's a lot going on in St. Catharines, but then I'm looking kind of 15 minutes south of there, and it's this little community which I'm having trouble figuring out just what it has economically. Like, I come from investing in a market where it's economically diverse. It's got healthcare, education, manufacturing. It's self-sustaining. Whereas this community seems to be totally reliant. However, geographically, it's so close to everything. So I'm so interested in that topic. And I think since I'm interested, I'm going to ask you a lot of questions, and hopefully other people find it interesting too. What your thoughts are on markets like that, and what your approach would be if you were to look at another small market.
So it's funny because I just drove around St. Catharines last week to have a look around that area. I drove to Niagara, had a look around. And I think where we are different here is, one, on the island, we're isolated just by being on Vancouver Island. Now, I know Vancouver Island, for people that aren't aware, it's like the size of England. Like, it's huge.
It's big, yeah.
Yeah, and they've got these little communities that are just dotted, and then the next one's 45 minutes to an hour away. So even though you're close by drive, like time-wise, there's nothing in between that drive. So I know when I was in St. Catharines, and it's very easy to jump on a highway and get to a major metropolis, whereas we don't have that ability here. Right. So we've got to get on a ferry. It's a day trip if you want to go to Vancouver. So for that being said, I think we're a little bit more self-sufficient within that community because they have to be.
Whereas everything you need there.
Within there. I mean, we have, the home hardware is yes, you might pay a little bit more because you're more remote. But everything is here. You actually don't need to leave this town to do anything. You just might pay more for it.
That's amazing.
Whereas I think other small towns, if you can drive to a metropolis area, then it's, because I know Merritt in BC, I lived there for a year, but that's a drive to Vancouver. It's a 3-hour drive, or, to Kelowna, a couple hours. So for them to get to these bigger metropolises, they don't have everything they need in Merritt because they can just drive for 2 hours and get to it, whereas we don't have that ability. So
interesting.
I think you want to make sure, if you're looking at a smaller market, is there a reason that people will leave? Because really here, there's no reason that people have to leave. And then the second thing I would look at is, what is the real market behind the market? Because everyone calls us a logging town, but it's not. We're supported by, like I said, the First Nations governments, the things that support that, and all the support things that go behind supporting remote communities. This is just the hub of those. I think someone actually said it to me the other day, and it made so much sense, was we're almost becoming the Squamish to Whistler as we are to Tofino with that drive. So people are starting to move back from Tofino and even renting Airbnbs here and stuff. So we're almost becoming that gateway to something else.
To clarify for people who aren't familiar, how exactly do you mean in terms of, are you like a bedroom community to another community almost?
When tourists are going to Tofino, it's about 1 million people go through Port Alberni every year on the way to Tofino. And I speak to so many people, I'm like, oh yeah, Vancouver Island. And they're like, Port Alberni? No, I don't know where it is. I'm like, have you been to Tofino? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, you drove through us. So it's kind of starting to capitalize on that. And because Tofino's so landlocked because of the sea, people are now, investors are starting to move back this way. Okay, well, we can't do anything else here. What can I do there? And I'm starting to see a snowball effect, which wasn't planned, but we've seen the prices starting to go up, the demand, like it's just really starting to boom, but we're 12 months behind everything else.
Interesting. And so here's my take on what's happening back where we are. So I'm in the greater Toronto area.
Yeah.
I read this in Don Campbell's original book way back when, like about how you drop a rock in a pond and then the ripples go out. And ever since that, it always resonated with me. And I was always watching. I mean, it's okay. So Toronto's the epicenter. Whatever happens there and then spreads. And I've watched it happen slowly over the last, say, 10 years where prices just got driven up in Mississauga, Oakville. These are the cities in order coming outside of Toronto. Well, Oakville was a little up anyway because it was high end. But so then the ripples kept spreading and it actually made its way all the way to London finally. London got expensive. So now people started going to outer smaller towns outside of London. And it's basically once one market gets too expensive, it's like kind of people just decide that they're in a move and they'll just drive to work. Oh, whatever, I'll drive the 20 minutes in if I need to. It's gone to the extreme now, because if somebody were to move to St. Catharines or even Welland and they had to commute to Toronto by the train, even when the train comes, they're looking at like an hour and a half. And to me, I can't understand that because it's insanity to me. I wouldn't do that, but obviously somebody would. And I just keep seeing it, and I don't see another way for our market to go. And I think anyone who's near a major metropolis that's growing is probably going to see something similar, right? That like if you're near Manhattan, the things around Manhattan are going to go up consistently as long as Manhattan keeps going up. But if Manhattan crashes, that's your epicenter, and then the ripples spread out the same way, right?
Have you heard of the golden hour?
The golden hour?
Yeah.
No.
So it's a term coined from London, basically, which is the center of the UK. And and I've looked at other cities, and now you're speaking about Toronto. So if you can travel within an hour of your epicenter where you drop the stone, then it's going to be dictated by what's happening in that center. And when you're on about Toronto growing, in the ripples, so Nanaimo, even though we're on an island, are getting 2 fast cats. And they're really close to getting this, which will mean they're only going to be 45, 50 minutes from downtown Vancouver.
Oh, okay.
Well, anywhere that's because people don't leave work and go, oh, I live 44 miles away. There you go. I live 55 minutes away, or I live an hour and 20. Like you just said it there. We don't even know the distance. We just know the time. So if you're less than an hour, then typically you're going to pay more for your property. You're going to pay more because people don't mind traveling up to an hour usually. So if you're within that golden hour of what's going on, and like you said, Toronto's the epicenter, but then it moved out a bit. Well, now you've got an hour to there because that's now a community that people want.
Yes.
So it just keeps spreading.
It keeps spreading. It's like new little pebbles.
Yeah. And once Nanaimo goes within an hour, we're going to see density. We're going to see prices increase. But then the people who live there that can't afford it, they've got to move somewhere. Well, there's only here that's the next affordable town.
Yeah.
So that's going to put demand on this market. And I'm starting to see demographics change in the town. And none of this was intentional when I started. Yeah. But now I'm aware of it. I can observe it and see how it's going to affect the market in the future now looking ahead.
Yeah. And just to clarify, fast cats, those are planes, right?
No, these are like catamaran boats, but just passengers. So instead of a ferry that takes an hour and a half, and then you got to drive downtown for an hour for like 40 minutes. It's literally downtown Nanaimo, sit on a boat, 45 minutes, downtown Vancouver, right in the center. That's
perfect, right? So that change. See, this is a perfect lesson. Like when you hear about an announcement for transit that's going to make a place accessible now within this golden hour, now all of a sudden, now wherever you are in the States, we have a bunch of American listeners or in Canada. Now that's all of a sudden maybe a place you want to think about investing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's fully on my radar right now. And houses in that area are about 600, which is, I know some people if you're saying in the States are like 600,000, that's like 9 houses.
Depends on the market.
Yeah. But I think a key thing to note is not to do it just on the announcement, because we're speculating, right? Yeah. I think to do it once the spades are in the ground, the contract signed. And I know they've tried this before and it failed. And there's reasons it failed you can look into. But I spoke to the city because I know people that are investing because I coach clients and they're actually buying in Nanaimo. And I said, don't buy in this street until you know 100% that cat is there and it's going. And yes, you might pay a little bit more, but now the market's actually being driven.
Right, because the initial announcement is I've heard that could be about a 10% bump. And then when it actually starts, then you're really going to see growth. But if you can get on, shovel in the ground is an insurance policy.
Yeah.
And even then you're not fully protected, because there have been projects that have been called off or delayed or changed plans.
Oh yeah.
It can happen. But I mean, I guess as long as you're not putting all your eggs in that basket and you hedge yourself, you should be okay.
Yeah, and I think once it's there, like I said to her, you know, I like the town in Nanaimo. It's a great investment town. But I just said to her, I would wait before you overspend in an area to be sure that's going to happen. Otherwise, if it doesn't, you've just overspent for an area.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so let's get a little more context on you, Gary. Are you a buy and hold guy now? Do you hold a lot of properties, or are you a flip guy? How would you categorize yourself?
I would say I'm a buy and hold, primarily 95% buy and hold. It's, you know, wealth is created in time. And so, what did someone else say to me the other week? They went, and even if you make a mistake, time will help fix it in real estate. If you know, there's a lot of people who bought and made a mistake. And I know people personally that have bought and they're hurting for 3 years, and then something happens and they're like, oh, it's okay now. It's like, well, so yeah, buy and hold. I buy for cash flow. I started very much where I was working in the business. We tried to find a property management company to manage all our properties that we couldn't. So we actually started property management company ourselves. So now we have staff that help do that.
It's a common story.
Yeah. And it was, I knew I wanted to work in and around real estate, but I didn't want to be a realtor. No offense to realtors. It just wasn't something that I wanted to get involved in. I like my weekends and time off. And I wanted to control my own schedule. So I started doing, like I say, the renos myself, being paid. When I was getting a joint venture partner, rather than bill that out to a contractor, we still used electricians, plumbers, all the rest of it. I just project managed, did what I could. And then, but I would bill myself out at a cheaper rate. So I'd bill myself at like $25 an hour when I first started.
Okay.
And I would be, so that created an income. You know, I'd get a few $1,000s a month, and it allowed me to start investing without worrying about income and all the rest of it. I mean, now we don't, but I've learned very fast that my time's worth a lot more than $25 an hour.
Yeah. To clarify, so you're billing basically yourself, billing your own projects.
Or the joint venture projects.
Oh, they were joint venture. So you're partnered with other people when you got started?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I didn't have a lot when I started. So I'll tell you my very first property, and this is what lit me up.
Okay.
I immigrated to Canada. I had to put 40% down because I had to get a line of credit because I couldn't get a mortgage. Being a foreigner, no credit. And I was at 8% in 07 on my first. It wasn't even a mortgage. And then as soon as I could qualify, I refinanced, pulled some equity out, and went and bought my first investment property, which was my second home. Back then, you could put 5% down on that.
Okay.
So it was a townhouse. I put $6,000 down. It went up about $20,000 the next year, and I was going to England, and I needed some capital. And I had two choices. I could either flip the house and cash and pay the taxes, or I could find an investor to come in and buy that capital and then have a share. So I approached my cousin, said, hey, do you want to buy this equity in this house? And I didn't understand how I was doing this. I was just totally winging it. I said, do you want to buy the capital in this house? And if we sell it tomorrow, you get your money back. And then we split everything 50-50 after that, which worked out. He would have made about 20% if we'd sold it the day after. So you give me the cash. I went to England, and I'm sitting on the plane. I'm calculating the ROI, which again, I wasn't doing beforehand.
Yeah.
I did the math, and I'm like, I just made 333% return on my money. In 12 months, I've now got zero money invested in the house, and I still own the house. And I was just like, holy shit, how do I keep doing that? So
interesting.
It was just like when you do the math and you start realizing the returns, I was just like, wow, I've got to. So that started my path of like, okay, I've got to educate myself about this.
Okay, so just a couple of specifics on that. So you had the house for about a year, you said?
Yep.
Yeah. What did you buy it for again?
It was like around 100, just
around 100,000. So townhouse.
Yeah.
It went up in value by how much, you figure?
20,000.
20,000, and then whatever you had into it, you refinanced, and then you took whatever equity was left over, and you got that from your brother-in-law?
No, I didn't actually refinance. I actually my cousin just wrote me a check for $20,000. So he gave me $20,000 cash.
So you got all your money out. Yeah.
He didn't have to qualify for a mortgage, so it helped him. It didn't go against his debt service. And then we just had an agreement that if I sold it or we refinanced it, he would get his 20 grand first, and we'd split everything 50-50 after that. Yeah,
that's a common in practice. That's a common JV arrangement. Now, obviously, you probably did have a contract, or was this a handshake?
Oh, totally a handshake.
Yeah, I love the handshake deal.
Now.
Yeah,
And
I think
yeah, I think
the
once
real
you
need for
start getting past
contracts.
3 or 4 joint
Yeah.
ventures, and outside if people, it's more
Yeah.
if something goes wrong, and I tell people, yes, I know we're great friends, but what if I die?
Yeah.
Who's protecting you then? And it's more for that. And I would recommend
Yes.
anybody who's doing a joint venture, get your paperwork, get it signed, get it notarized before you even transfer any cash. It keeps it clean, simple. Everybody knows the rules they're following.
Yeah, because you never know if you might, get in a car accident on the way to the lawyers. You haven't signed it and you already got the cash in your account.
Yeah.
Well, that's a challenge, right? So yeah. I'm of the same belief, right? I mean, you do deals with friends and family and referred, and everybody trusts everybody. But you're like, well, if something happened to me, I would never want to put you in that position. So let's get our ducks in a row and make sure it's done right.
And I've actually been bit in the ass doing a joint venture handshake deal. It ended up working out great, but it was just because we didn't have it written down and they wanted out. It was like, well, that's not what we agreed on, and it was all verbal. So we kind of negotiated and ended up good, but it's still it was a stressful time.
Well, the more moving parts, the more likely people are to forget too.
Yeah.
I've noticed, like, if it's a simple interest rate, like your interest rate is 8% or whatever it is, and that's easy to calculate. There's no confusion there. But the second you're like, well, this is what we do if this happens. This is what we do if this happens. Man, if you don't have that written down, people seem to forget things. And I've just encountered this lately. I had a private lender that told me one thing was in his contract. He called me up. He's like, oh yeah, don't worry about that. He's like, if I'm easygoing, you can talk to, this person who he also deals with, and he'll tell you how easygoing I am. I'm like, okay, well, and I've dealt with him before too. It was okay. And then sure enough, end of it comes around and he changed his tune completely, wanted to sock me with all these extra fees. I never said that. I'm like, are you kidding me? Wow. Well, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but it just reiterated to me, man, get things in writing.
Yeah. And it's, I think when you're doing joint ventures, and this would be one of the things that I always tell people when I'm sitting down with my joint venture partners, is write down a what if list and think of the craziest stuff that could possibly happen and just ask the question, what if? And then what we'll do is come back to the table and go, well, what if that does happen? And then you decide ahead of time what's going to happen in that case. I know we had one person where we did a rent to own, and the guy had actually, it was a sadder story. He tried to commit suicide. Mm-hmm. He'd gone through a really dark time in his life. His mum had passed away, all the rest of it, and he'd fallen behind on his payments. So he effectively bought the house, rent to owned it back to him. Mm-hmm. So we could take over the payments, help catch up, all that kind of stuff. Everyone was happy. But because he'd had this history, we were like, well, what if he kills himself? So we actually had it where he had a life insurance policy that was already in place before he tried. So it was still valid. And we checked with the insurance, it was still valid in case anything happened. And we said, okay, make us the benefactors of that insurance policy. And if something happens, like even if you just die naturally, what we'll do is pay off the mortgage on the house and we will re-rent back to your family for $100 a year for the rest of their lives, as long as they stay living in the house. Okay. So now he knows his family's taken care of, but now we have a house 100% paid off that we can borrow against and go reinvest somewhere else. But create a win-win out of that one.
Yeah. Wow, that's an interesting situation. I'm not going to ask, but I hope it turned out.
It all went great. He ended up with a house. Everything was awesome. So he's got a good life.
Okay.
So
happy ending then.
Yeah.
Okay. So I still want to get more into you a little bit. If you don't mind, ballpark, like how many doors are you at right now? Give me a little more insight.
We bought a few. So we currently sitting holding 21, 22, something like that doors. We just bought 4 in Leduc last week. We just started buying into commercial property. So we just bought a huge 24,000 square foot commercial, and that's going to be the project for the next few months. Get that up and running, new tenants.
Okay.
Kind of things.
So you've never dabbled in commercial. That's a new thing for you.
No, I actually, it's funny because I've always had this buy and hold strategy with residential, and it was working great. We get great cash flow. The portfolio was probably sitting around 5.6, 5.8
million in total.
Yeah, in total value. And then we end up with this commercial. And so we would buy the commercial. It was all handshake deal originally because we know the person in the family. And then we got it in writing. I go to the notary, I hand it in. I'm like, yeah, we're closing in like 2 weeks. He went, you do know you paid GST on this? Because it's commercial. I was like, no, I did not. So that was a $21,000 lesson in commercial investing.
Yeah. You had to pay.
Yeah.
But on the bright side, if you register, you should be able to get it back.
Yes. Now I'm on the phone to the accountant going, hold off closing. We got to get registered for the GST number so we can close. So, I mean, everyone's making it work, but it was it was a lesson for sure.
That's stretching and bending a little bit to say the least. Yeah, every time you get into something new, it's just these things just kind of slap you in the face a little bit. I'm speaking from personal experience, like, oh, that's how that goes. But hey, that's how you learn.
If you do enough properties, and we've done a few flips, we've done a few like higher end where we've done events at houses to help them sell, and then we've pocketed the spread. So I've dabbled in a few things, but I like to buy and hold. And we stopped for about a year or two, about 18 months. We stopped buying. We were just, okay, let's figure out what we've got, because we'd grown kind of quick, but not very organized.
Right.
Even though it was a business. So we ended up going back, speaking to the accountant, saying, look, this is where we're heading now. This is what I started going after 5 to 10. And now we're getting to this point, multiple joint venture partners. So we needed to restructure the company. We got a CEO now. So Carissa Brossois, who is also my stepdaughter, she's the CEO of our company now. So she manages all the back end, and it just keeps it clean, managed, and it allows me to go do what I'm good at.
What's your company called?
Rental House Profits is the active buying company. Alberni Valley Rental House Profits Inc. is the company. But we also have the education company, revenue.com.
Okay, so
that's the YouTube channel, the education. We coach people how to buy properties and stuff like that.
Okay, so that's something you sort of got into because of your experience, I'm guessing, doing all this.
Again, it was kind of an organic growth. The lady who formed Revenue is Julie Broad, who wrote the book More Than Cash Flow. So Julie and Dave Penuik, they were from Nanaimo, so we kind of knew them, and I knew them not through real estate. I met them before real estate, and my stepdaughter actually bought the rights to teach their course, Rookie to Rock Solid Real Estate, which is like a 7-week program that helps people get started. And she did that without me knowing, I guess, for want of a better word, on her own. And then she had her own business on the side, was subcontracting to me, and that's kind of how we came together. So we amalgamated, and then she brought in the teaching, and then Julia she was selling her website, and I phoned it up and said, well, if we're teaching you courses which were being directed from this website, it makes sense that we buy the website. So we had a conversation, and she went, well, if you buy the website, you can have the YouTube channel. And the YouTube channel is like 6,000 subscribers. It's already making money each month. So we were like, sure, that makes sense. I mean, it's kind of, you buy something that pays for itself over time. It made an investment choice to me, and we get on really well with them. So we're like keeping them alive as well within that. Yeah. Because they built that brand, and we kind of just bought it.
So you're helping to design some course material as well now? Like you guys are working together on that? The curriculum is now a joint venture as well?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of Carissa had a couple of courses that she could teach that were strictly from Revenue, and she had the license. We looked at it probably about 8 months ago and said, because I look at the real estate investing market, and to me, there's two groups of people. The people that do nothing, and then there's the people that are willing to spend some money to educate themselves. But that costs. I mean, you go on a weekend course, it's $1,000. You join a membership somewhere, it's anywhere between $3,000 and up to, as much as it pains me to say this, $30,000, $40,000.
Yeah.
And I cringe every time I hear someone that's paid that. But I'm like, who's looking after that gap of people that want to start but don't yet see the value in spending $3,000, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $30,000? So we formed a program called REAP, the Real Estate Achievement Program. And we put all the programs that we had, which are Rookie to Rock Solid, Rent to Own and Creative Strategies, How to Raise Capital, Property Management, Personal Development and Business, and then also the coaching, which I'm licensed under the Legacy of Canada now to do real estate advising. All of that is in one package, and they subscribe for $97 a month, but they have to subscribe for a year. And the reason I said a year is because it takes time to get experience. You can't do a weekend course. You can learn the concept, and then you can go away, as I did, and make a shit ton of mistakes. And when you do that, it's a stupid tax that we pay, the $21,000 tax, because we didn't know how to do something. And if I wasn't in a position where that wasn't an issue, $21,000, I would have been screwed. So, I mean, I was just lucky that we had a big pot that we're doing some work, and it was like, okay, that was a lesson, but it wasn't an issue. So I think working with people over a year and actually coaching them, because it's what you do anyway. If you're getting a joint venture partner, you almost train them out about real estate, and you spend 4 weeks coaching somebody, teaching them, whereas now it's like, hey, you know what? Get your level of knowledge up, and then we'll have a more intellectual conversation around real estate.
Yeah, there's a base learning that's necessary. And now I send people to the podcast. They're like, any advice? I'm like, yep, listen to the podcast.
Yeah. And by the way, I've been listening to a few, and these are awesome podcasts. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you saying that. I try and keep it, stuff that I find interesting, because I'm the best at asking questions about that. But luckily, I'm interested in this stuff exactly. So I love what you're sharing. And I still want to get into more about your sort of system right now. Like, could you just, if you want to, just stop doing everything and live off your rental income?
Yes.
Yeah. So you've got the 22 doors.
Yeah.
They're mostly single detached homes or multis?
Yeah, mostly single detached.
Single detached homes. So it's a big, decent sized portfolio with a pretty good value on it. Out of a $5.8 million portfolio before the commercial aspect that you've added on now, approximately what portion can you take away from that as cash flow, if you don't mind me asking? You don't have to give exact.
Like monthly cash flow?
Yes.
And if we were to sell up and just pocket?
No, just like monthly cash flow. I'm a buy and hold guy. I love the buy and hold strategy.
So monthly cash flow generates currently after expenses probably about $4,000 a month.
Okay.
And that's after business expenses and all that kind of stuff. And that's just off the rents.
Right.
It's probably a little more than that actually, but a lot of the time we leave money in an account still. So I've got I've got JV partners where we've got bank accounts that are probably approaching $15,000 to $20,000 for each property. So we could pull that as cash flow, but we actually don't, because we don't need to.
Like to leave it. Yeah. I'm the same. I like to let every account, like 10,000 is my bare minimum. Like every account, I let it hit 10,000 before I'd even start taking money out of it. Yeah. And I actually like to let it grow beyond. Yeah.
It's we live, your business covers my vehicle, it pays for the phone, so we don't have to draw that cash out. And that's just cash flow. That's from rents. We have the company that does the property management. Then we have the renovations. So if we've got tradespeople coming in and we're project managing, we make on that kind of stuff. So we actually get little dips here and there as well. So
it's interesting how you fell into that. Because I fell into that, like that exact same type of thing. I started in mortgage brokering because I wanted to invest in real estate and I knew nothing. So then a few years pass and I finally, I bought my first property within the first year as it was going to be a rent own. It didn't end up working out. But anyways, I owned a property. So I got a couple, then realized I ran out of money. I'm like, well, what do I do now? So I started dabbling in renovations and I managed it myself not because I wanted to, but I actually really enjoyed it. But just because I'm like, well, I can't afford to hire a general because I'm inexperienced. They're going to see that and they're going to take me for a ride. Yeah. So I didn't. I contracted the whole thing myself, and then I did a couple more. Ended up, keeping a bunch of properties, refinancing them, sold a couple, and all of a sudden, my mother-in-law, who's a developer, future mother-in-law, she noticed. She's like, well, you guys are doing that pretty quick. And, what would you think about building 27 townhouses for me? And my head just started spinning a little bit. I'm like, whoa, okay. Wasn't expecting that. But all of a sudden I got into general contracting. I had other investors ask me to, build their student rentals for them. And, again, never looking for this work. And now I'm helping build a custom home. And it's just, to me, it's Lego now. I just posted on this yesterday because like as a kid, I played with Lego and now I get to play with Lego on a bigger scale. But I like the result, so I can like the process. And at the end of it, when I get that result of cash flow, I'm like, boom, that's where I wanted to be. I've had a hard time letting go of wanting everything to be so nice. Like all my properties are nice, and like looking in markets where things are kind of scuzzy and realizing that, hey, cash flow would be a lot easier if I lowered my standard as a landlord as to what I wanted to own. So long-winded story. That's kind of just telling you how I fell into this stuff. I know you fell into contracting, you fell into property management out of necessity, right? You kind of needed it.
I was just kind of doing, I did have a background of skills. I'm an engineer by trade, electrical engineer. So before I emigrated, I did my electrical ticket. I can do gas fitting, fridge work. So I kind of was around the trades a lot. So it just made sense to kind of take it on and do it. Like I'm actually I'm not saying that anyone should just fall in and start general contracting, because there is a lot to learn. And if you make a mistake in that field, it can be very costly. So I think if you've got a set of skills that transfer into it, and that could just be project management, it could be people management, for want of a better word. I don't even call it property management. If you're good with people, I think you can naturally property manage, because that's what it is. It's not the property.
Yeah.
If you're organized, and I'm not as organized as I should have been. Like when I was getting to about between 5 and 10, I was juggling, and something would happen over here, and all of a sudden you're forgetting about what's happening over here. And that's where I really had to stop a year ago and be like, okay, let's get this organized. My stepdaughter, she came into, we joined our companies together. She took on the CEO role and basically runs the business in the back end, which is awesome. I could not do what I do without having that close team. I know you talk about build your real estate team, but even that close team, it's just not who I am. So I think people have to really know their skill sets and not think, well, I can just do that because that's easy.
Yeah.
I mean, you obviously have a skill set even when you were taking that on. You've worked with numbers, even being a broker. Your numbers are in your head, and any big project is just numbers. It's just where the numbers are coming.
Well, I have a business background. I graduated from business school. I taught actually at the same school that I graduated from for a few years as well, business. So I think what that led to was me, and I say this to people, I actually think that having an education and having capabilities, like you could probably wire a house yourself, but then you have to be able to step back and say, look, I feel strongly that I would do it better to my liking than anyone else would. But I don't want to spend that time doing that. Like, I'm really good at bookkeeping, which is a detriment and an asset too. Like, I'm probably the best bookkeeper I'll ever have because I'll do it exactly the way I want it, but that's a low paid job. Yeah. And having a lot of skills, like being able to video edit or do these things, like these lead me to spend a lot more time doing things that I probably should be out making deals. So I have to be very introspective about all this and say, look, these are the things I will spend time on. These are the things they won't. So it's interesting you bring up that point.
It's good though when you think, and obviously I'm not saying you aren't, but when you think you're really good at something, which I do, because we all like our ego to be stroked, and then you find someone that's actually really, really good at it, you realize how shitty you actually were.
Yeah. Sometimes,
not always, but I'm just, there's a lot of things like that. And I mean, I think, like you said as well, having the skill set and the knowledge, and this is applied directly to my stepdaughter when she first started with me. She went, I want to learn what you do. And I said, well, why don't you come and work on a couple of houses, work with the contractors and learn how they do it? It's kind of like going to work, and she's a young woman getting into the industry. You're typically working with guys in the field, 90% of the time in the trades. I said, they'll try and tell you what they want to do. I went, if you know how it can be done, then they're not going to bullshit you. So she actually learned, she can like wire, she can plumb, she can do all the trades. I mean, she's not certified, but now when she's speaking to the tradespeople, they know she knows her stuff. So they're not BSing her. And she's like, no, this is how I want it done. I want it done like that. If you got to jackhammer the floor, but it can be done. So I think learning what's possible, even if you just got to watch someone else doing it first to know that's possible. I think that's a great skill to take, and I don't mean go stand over your plumber's shoulder and watch what he's doing and tell him, oh, you should be doing that different, but at least you can set the goal, because a lot of times we'll say things that we want, even in real estate, and we're not clear on the vision.
Yes.
And you end up at the end and people are like, oh, that's not really what I wanted. Well, you weren't clear enough on the vision if you didn't communicate that properly.
You read a great point there too. Just knowing what goes into things makes you able to talk to contractors. And if you can't, that's when they start taking advantage of you in a lot lot of ways, right? If you want people to, you need your contractors to respect you.
Yeah. And even if you're raising joint venture capital, like joint venture, I had a joint venture partner and she was like, well, that's a long time for this labor. Like, how much? And I said, why don't you show up to the house tomorrow and we'll get you doing some stuff. Just, so she had no idea. Yeah. So she turned up the next day and I said, look, here's an easy one. Why don't you just, because we were refinishing these solid wood cabinets, I went, why don't you just paint the cabinets? So she painted the cabinets and it took her all day. And then she had to clean the brushes at the end and all the rest of it. Said, wow, that took ages. I went, exactly. So now you got a concept of the time it takes to get a project done. So when you get a bill that's like, $10,000 for labor, she's like, oh, okay, now I understand where all these hours have come from. So it's, again, it helped her understand that and it stopped her micromanaging.
Yes. Oh, that's another great point is when I was doing Future after my first one where I general contracted the whole thing. I now, when I budgeted out other things, I thought about how long they took more so than I thought about what the bill was. I'm like, okay, this took a guy working full-time, or would take a guy working full-time probably 2 weeks. And then when you start to know that, you put the numbers together and you say, well, even if I sub this out and the contractor's not willing to give me that price, I could probably find a guy to work hourly and get it done. And it gives you some certainty in the numbers if you can do that. So another really good point. So is that why, like, I'm trying to assess why you got into contracting at all? Like, I know you were using it. Did you just, was that necessity? Did you not?
I think when I emigrated, because I was working around the trades, I was doing, even though I had my engineering degree, I ended up working in refrigeration for a couple of years. So I was working around the trades anyway. So it was more of a natural flow. It wasn't just like a decision one day, you know, screw it, I'm on a contract. And, you know, I started just doing, with the rental I had, I was just doing work on the first one I bought there, and I was kind of managing that myself. And then I'd do little jobs. And then all of a sudden I found out that when I started getting joint ventures, I was giving up all this time to manage them, and I wasn't getting paid because I wasn't actually charging for it. So I had no money because I wasn't taking the cash flow, and I had no time because I was doing all the jobs. And I was like, well, this isn't how I planned it. So you kind of like, what can I change? And I'm always looking back going, okay, what was I doing there? How can I make it better? And how can I add more value, not just to my joint venture, but to me personally, because my life has a value to it.
Right.
I didn't want it, and if not more than anything else. And people should value their time more than anything else. I mean, it's okay enjoying what we do and enjoying the journey, which you should if you're going to get into real estate. But it was just to the point where, well, I'm not going to pay a general contractor an extra 20% on an $80,000 project when there is nothing in that project that I don't know or understand. I might not be able to do it all. Like I can hang drywall, but I can't finish drywall, but I know the time it should take. So I'm not going to let someone charge me 20% more just to do that. So I took on that to save the joint venture money, not to do anything else. And I've got a good team of people that I work with. Like I've built up a good team of plumbers, electricians, of drywall. Like I have a good team, like support team around me. And because we got to the point where we have a lot of properties, we're usually always got some kind of renos, some kind of project going on. I was doing like 2 or 3 properties a year, like fully gutting them, fully renoing. So the people that I worked with knew that they had work for 6 to 8 weeks on each project, and they were happy to show up to my emergency jobs because we were giving them this work elsewhere. And it wasn't in this boom that we've got going on now. It was in 07, 08 where there was nothing. Like, there was no real work. So people were happy to get the work, and now that's paying dividends, you know, being loyal to my staff and the team I work with.
Loyalty is a nice thing. I found, just to that point, I found that we had a trade boom here sort of end of 2017, summer 2017. Went nuts. It was so hard to get people to job sites. I was in the middle of building those condos, and like people weren't showing up. It just delayed things. And one thing that really helped me out was the ongoing relationships I'd had from several years previous to get like my student rental projects done, you know, because they're on 4-month timeframes. We couldn't be late because we had students moving in September 1. So we had to get them done. And had I not had those relationships, I probably would have been in there myself swinging the hammer. And, you know,
and I've done that as well to keep projects on time.
I have done that. Well, early on, I did it more just because I wanted to know. I'm like, I want to frame. That looks fun. It actually was kind of.
I always used to like the demo stuff, and frame, and it's like chopping things, banging things. And I'm like, I need someone else to do that. That's too fiddly for me. Yeah,
it was all the things that you wanted to do when you were a kid, and
play with the toys, right?
Okay, so I think this is a good time to transition. Would you be able to give me a case study example of like a slam dunk deal for you? What you bought it for, what you put into it, what you did. It could have been a rent to own, or maybe it was a flip, or maybe it was a buy and hold.
So I mean, other than that first one, which we did, that was like just an accidental home run, like 300% return in 12 months. I think the first real true where I kind of had my stuff together and I knew what I was doing, it was intentional the way I did it, it was a house we purchased for 160, and we had to get a bit creative going in because the father passed away and they were stuck holding this house, and the people carrying the house while it was in probate, they were paying the taxes, the hydro, all the bills, and they didn't have it. So we stepped in, wrote an offer, give them the full asking price, which is what they wanted. But we asked for the ability to go in and renovate and rent it before we even got ownership. So there was a bit of risk there for us
Yes.
because they were like, and we had to get our insurance to indemnify them and things like that because they still own the house.
Mm-hmm.
But I said, look, it's going to go through probate. It just might take a year or two. Like it has to go through, and you guys own it. So and there was only one. There was no one fighting the will or anything like that. We checked all that. I said, so you will end up with it. It's just however long that's going to take. And how about we step in? We'll take over all the bills, insurance, hydro. I'll even back pay you for the 2 months of hydro that you've shelled out because that was like $500.
Mm-hmm.
I went, and then you just sign a contract that says we can renovate it, and then if we rent it out before probate goes through, we get to keep the rents. And they were like, sure. So we stepped in. It took 3 months to get the probate through, by which time we already had the lower half of the house converted and rented out.
Mm-hmm.
So we were making money on it already. And we're still not out of pocket now. We've just given them a deposit. So we're now only into it for $10,000 because that's the deposit we give them. And we're now making, I think it was $900 a month.
It's a quick return on investment.
Yeah.
There.
So we were starting to, and we didn't have any mortgage on it at any time. So a joint venture partner was in on this with me. He brought in cash. So he brought in the full 160 plus the renovation costs. We spent 40,000 on reno in total. So we're into this house for 200. At the end of renovations, it was worth 250.
Okay.
And we were renting upstairs for 12 and downstairs for 950 after the renovations were finished.
Those sound like nice numbers.
Yeah. So we were getting 2150 and we were, we were into it for $200,000. So it cash flowed, I think, around 650 to 700, depending on what was going on that month for utilities and stuff.
That's nice cash flow.
329 now, and we've got like $100,000 mortgage on it. So it's just, and that was 4 years ago.
Wow.
So that was the first real, okay, this is my strategy. This is what I'm doing. I bought houses, done a couple of rent-to-owns. I had rentals before that, but this was like, no, this is my, and I'd done this strategy a couple of times, but not necessarily like went out, looked for it, did it. That was the first real one.
Okay. So on this one, did you guys go to the bank at the end of it? When you
refinanced, pull the money back out, and then we moved on to another house and did the same again.
So 250,000 value is what the appraiser said?
Yeah.
And you guys got 80%, I'm guessing?
Yes. Yeah.
So 80% of that. So I think that, what's that leave you with? That leaves you with your 200,000. Yeah. So that's not bad. So you're basically into the property for zero.
Yeah.
And you were cash flowing, you said $600-700 a month?
Yeah, between 600 and 700.
And then your mortgage payments, we could do a rough calculation on what your
24 a month.
That was your mortgage payment? Still is?
Yeah, it still is, yeah. I just finished doing the annual spreadsheet. That's how I know it.
Yeah, so $524 a month on that mortgage. And out of that, you've got, we'll call it roughly 3% of your original mortgage would be your payback on a annual basis.
Yeah, about that.
Usually about 3%. That's a safe bet. So let's just actually calculate that number. I'd like to show these on the podcast. If people watch the YouTube version, they can follow along. So 3% on our 200,000 is going to be 6,000 a year, and pay down.
That sounds about right.
So you're paying down your mortgage $6,000 a year.
Yep.
You're getting say $600 a month in cash flow. So that's going to be 600 times
72.
12, 72. Yeah, it's still early for me, and I didn't have enough coffee this morning. Flow per year. And then what do you figure appreciation has been in your market on a consistent 10-year basis?
It just got appraised again because we just appraised it because we're looking at pulling capital out and moving stuff now, and it just got appraised at 329.
So would you say, we'd have to work backwards, but would you say 3% a year is a safe bet where you are? 3% growth every year?
So since we've bought the house, last year was 27, year before was 19. Then we were low. We were 6 and 5. So probably about 12 to 15 has been what the growth has been for the 4 years since owning it.
That's insane. Now, but so me as an investor, I know that where we are, it's the same. My appreciation in the last couple of years has been 40, 50,
it's nuts.
Insane. But I would never go into an investment expecting that.
No, that's not normal.
Yeah.
I tell people these low interest rates, these low vacancy and this high appreciation is not normal.
Yeah.
This is, it's great times if you're investing, but it's not normal. I allow 3% when I'm doing calculations.
Sure. That's what I was trying to get at there. Obviously you do better in a lot of cases, but what if you don't? It's better to just be safe than sorry. Yeah. So 3% is a pretty safe number. So that's another $7,500. So if we add those three up, so 7,500 plus 7,200 plus another 6,000, so 20,700 on something you have no money in.
Yeah.
So we can't even calculate a return because you have no investment. You have your time, which I mean, we should quantify. I mean, we could technically say, Gary wants his time to be valued at $200 an hour, and you have, 20 hours into the deal or something along those lines. And we could calculate a number based on that if we wanted to. But keeping it simple, that's fantastic. And I love examples like this because it shows people, hey, if you can put a deal together, if you use your brain and you can align all the pieces, you can actually put a deal together where you don't have any of your own money in, and you're getting paid every month in perpetuity after.
Yeah, solve problems. That's what, like, I solved the people's problems that were holding the house. They were stuck carrying it with costs. Like, they were in a headache. Like, they were stressed. Not only they just lost a parent, he's now got this stress of having a house. So we helped alleviate that stress. And we created that win-win for everyone. And the guy who we did this house with, the joint venture partner, we actually took the money out of this house, moved it into another, did the exact same thing again, and then did another one, did the exact same. So we went from, he started with 160,000 total cash, like actual cash. And then, we bought 40 and then we paid it. But 160 cash. And he's since put in another 200,000, which he'll be getting back this month, like a short-term loan. And he's now at 11 properties.
That's awesome. And when
4 years. And we set the goal of 10 in 5, because I said, we can roll it through. And he was very risk averse. So we had to prove the concept of each one before he's willing to move to the next and show him that it's up and running. And that's the example of having a plan by design and following it. And each one's slightly different, it's the numbers, but they're roughly the same kind of numbers. And then as the market appreciated in the last 2 years, you can't get these kind of numbers because the purchase price has just gone through.
It's going to take time for other rents to catch up or some other thing to happen in the market. Unfortunately. So the market's changed for you, it's changed for us too. That's why I'm kind of reevaluating things. Yeah. I love that my portfolio has gone up like crazy. It's just created a problem. It was a nice thing and a problem.
Yeah, it's a good price. So when you get your tax assessment, it's like, woo, it's gone up 30%. It's like, shit, it's gone up 30% on my bill. The market appreciation's good, but it's not something that I don't even actually, even though I allow 3% in my head, I never actually calculate it on my joint venture partners. When I'm showing them, when I'm presenting the opportunity to people, I literally just show them if we are very close on cash flow and the principal just gets paid down. That's all I allow for when I'm showing a joint venture partner. We're going to make 15 to 20% usually is the math. And then if you get any appreciation, that's when you start getting into your 30, 40% ROI. Not that I just go buy a house on the market, but if I was, like, I would be absolutely looking to hit 30%. I think that's doable. But I mean, when I'm getting way better than that, if I go in and I do a BRRRR strategy where you go and buy, renovate, rent it out, refi. But you got the work into it, right? Yeah.
Where do you get your joint venture partners?
So first one was my cousin. Second one was when I first learned about joint ventures and, actively pursued something, you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, you read Don Campbell's books, you start realizing it as a way of, I actually just hired the local, at the Berkeley Hotel, went and hired a little room, phoned up probably 10 of my friends and family and just said, you know what, I've got something I want to show you guys about real estate, and I bought a couple of houses, so they kind of knew I was doing it. I went, this is what I've learned from this book. You know who I am. This is what I think I can do. Here's an opportunity that was sitting on the market. And I will run, manage, do this. And all I'm asking for is 10% of the profit. And so it makes no profit, I don't get paid. That was basically how I pitched my first true looking for joint ventures. 3 people jumped on board with that who are actually have partnered in on other things with me since. I obviously don't do it for that now. You start to realize your value in a deal when you realize someone's making 60% plus ROI and you're getting like $5,000. It's like, that's not fair.
Well, you're solving a problem, right?
Yes.
I mean, and you should get paid, right? Because I had somebody asking me about this last night, saying like, how do you do joint ventures? Or if you do, like, I personally don't really do them right now, but if I were to, I mean, you'd be solving a problem. Anytime you're borrowing an investor's money, if they're making, let's say the average person in North America on their investments is probably making in the 3% range. factoring in all those people that are making negative returns, and then those people who are getting, 10 plus, the rarities. So if they're there and you could even offer them 8%, they're winning by 4%. You're solving their problem. You're helping them retire sooner. You're helping them build their child's education fund, whatever it might have been. And if you can do that, you have an opportunity to win. They have an opportunity to win. Again, business of solving problems.
I had a coaching client recently who just started with us. She was going through the program, which is awesome because she just bought her first duplex, everything. Like, she's killing it straight out the gate. And she said to me, because we talk about RSPs, using RSP mortgages and all that kind of stuff, which I know is another huge topic. And I said, well, what are you actually doing with your RSPs? And they were losing 20% a year. And this person was continually giving more money to the financial planner, which I use the term in italics and drives me. She said, well, what should I do? I went, stop giving them money. I said, if you were giving me money and I was just losing 20% of it, like if you give me every $1,000 and I was just throwing 200 out the window, what would you do? She went, I'd stop giving you the money. I went, so there you go. You just answered your question. So stop doing that and then figure out what you want to do. But stop digging. And I think so many people don't realize, that they're giving their money to somebody, whoever this is, and I'm not saying anything against the industry as a whole, but they'll give their money to people and hope that the destination is where they were promised when they get off the plane. Whereas I think with real estate, you can be conscious of the plane you're on and be making adjustments so you do end up at the correct destination in time.
Yes. Well, the key is control. And to your comment, I would say one of the fundamental things I've learned, and I've been burned badly, you never assume somebody is going to look out for your best interests. You can't do that. That's got to be earned. Yeah. And in my opinion is probably one of the hardest things to earn. And I can't think of, that many people that have earned that with me. And, so I'll always hedge myself and protect myself, and I won't take unnecessary risk. But there was a time where my property manager in Ohio, I had a couple of properties down there, needed money for renovation. And I gave one of those bound up $10,000 wads of American cash to my friend to take down to him because it was a 6-hour drive. I didn't know how to do the drafts for US dollars because it was Canadian dollars to US, whatever. So I just took it out. So stupid. Anyways, luckily he actually did account and gave me a statement saying he had it. But then the guy proceeded to collect rent from my property and keep it. He lived on my money. He lived on my renovation money. And then he didn't pay attention to the property he was supposed to be managing. Someone broke the water pipe after the meter, and the whole place flooded. Like the wooden fan blades were literally sagging. They had actually warped and they were sagging off the ceiling because of the humidity, mold in the house. I literally gave the house away. I had to give it away. I was actually in a position where the official verdict from my friend down there was that I was actually going to have to pay somebody to take it from me. The land wasn't even worth anything. And that, I almost threw up. But that experience shaped me as an investor. It made me so careful. And, everybody makes mistakes, but don't make the same mistake twice. And that was the big thing. Like, hey, I imagine most people don't have a story like that and probably won't. And I hope they don't. But when it does happen, if you can take that and you can use that, if it doesn't get you out of the game, it's going to make you so much stronger.
And I think what you said then, which is key to people investing, is don't stop moving forward regardless of what happens. You're going to have ups, downs, setbacks. I have myself. I mean, yours, that's a huge setback. But as long as you keep moving forward, you're going to end up somewhere in the future with real estate. And if you're in the game long enough, then you're going to do okay. If you're smart, if you know, if you're conscious about what you're doing, where you're putting your money. Yeah. And I think just cycling back to where you said about money and joint ventures and where I get them from, I think once I'd started getting a track record, and proving those returns, more people started approaching me now to actually say, hey, take my money and go and invest it. And I remember when I started, people said, money's the least of your worries when you get good at it. And I was like, money will find you. And yes, money will come to you if the deal is good enough, but you have to be broadcasting that you are actively looking for money and you're actively looking for deals. Yes. And once you do that, then people are aware that, okay, like these 4 doors we just bought in Leduc. I've never even been to Leduc. But because I'd reached out, connected with someone, said, hey, look, I see what you're doing. I'd like to be kept in the picture. If any deals come along, this is who I am. This is what I'm. I got a phone call the other week and it was someone said, hey, I've got these 4 doors. The guy needs out. It was 2 duplexes, like legal up down. The guy needs out, needs the cash. He'll carry the loan. He'll leave his equity in interest free for up to 5 years. And I'm just like, okay, the numbers just made so much sense. The cash flow of $500 each. So because I was in a position now where I've got a group of people, I literally said, give me 2 minutes. I picked up the phoned one of my other cash investors and said, are you interested in this? They said, asked a couple of questions. I hung the phone up, phoned the guy back and went, done, we buy them. And that was it. It was as fast as that. So we now own these houses. I've never seen them. I've never been, there's a lot more behind the scenes. I'm aware of Leduc. I knew what's going on in the town, the demographics, the job growth. The person who's writing the contracts, I know him as a lawyer personally. So I know the contracts are going to be good. Even though I didn't know this person was using them, as soon as I heard he was the one writing the contracts, I was like, okay, good. I don't need to ask questions. I know the contracts that he writes. And again, that came from experience. But my experience now allowed me to pick up the phone, raise a couple of $100,000 in 2 minutes, and then move forward on a deal and have a shared ownership of that deal. So now my joint ventures, I've kind of got a portfolio, I guess, of people and money that I can call, depend on the type of deal, knowing who the people are. So it's
isn't that powerful? You should just know. It's the power of knowing when the deal comes, I can do that deal. And you don't start there. You don't start there, but eventually people like to brag. That was what I wanted to say that earlier. People love to brag at the Christmas dinner table or the dinner table or family gatherings. Oh, did I tell you what I've been up to? Yeah, I've been making 10% or 5% or whatever. And they, I'm getting paid every month. And like, what? How are you doing that? And it's so funny that everyone becomes your salesperson when things, so just keep taking care of your investors and they'll spread the good word and you won't have to do much.
I think we miss that as an investor a lot of the time. And me, I'm guilty of this as well. Is a lot of investors don't think like we do. We're like a little bit nuts and crazy, for want of a better word. And I've got to be conscious to make sure that I put together their portfolios to show them what they're making, to keep them on that momentum of excitement. Otherwise, if you're not telling them what's going on so they can brag about that, they'll hear from their friend Bob over here who will tell them how great this is. And all of a sudden their attention shifts and they're not focused on you and yours. They're focused on something else. Or, oh, Bitcoin, that's great. Let me pull all my money out of the house and throw it in Bitcoin. Yeah, you don't want to do that when you're making 40+% over here. Like,
I have a good remedy for that. I just do monthly payments. People don't forget about me when I give them when there's a deposit in their account every month from me. I'm memorable.
I'm memorable because I give them cash.
It works.
I buy my friends. That's okay.
Well, when they're private lending, that instant gratification. I know people can say on paper there's a better return if I wait, and I might get a higher if I don't do it as an interest rate, but. If I could just pay somebody a simple interest rate and they get paid every month, they feel good about that. There's an emotional thing when money drops in your account every month that people love. And
there's a lot of people they'll double dip. So some of my joint venture partners are also the bank. Okay. So they'll joint venture in, but then they'll also provide the mortgage at like 4 or 5% interest only payments.
Fantastic.
So it's kind of, I'm seeing now a lot of people are wanting to not necessarily invest for the returns, but they're wanting to just park their capital. They don't want it sitting in the bank earning nothing, and they don't want to invest it in the market because they've seen what can happen if the markets tank. They don't want to lose 40%. So they're happy to just park it in real estate. And I'm starting to see that shift of like one of our investors literally sold the farm and pocketed. They never have to work again for the rest of their lives. They don't need to make any more money. They just don't want to have it in the bank. And they're happy to park it in real estate at a low interest rate. So if someone's double dipping like that, then I do say we're not going to charge 6, 7, 8% because I can go get a bank at 3. Yep. So why would I do that? But I'm happy to do 4 or 5 interest only. And then they'll get the payments just like a mortgage. It shows up on the statement. Yeah. And things. So you see, and that goes in the bank every month. So they see that regular payment and they're happy to mortgage other houses.
Yeah. That's great. And so, ultimately it comes down to, there's a million different ways to do it, right? And it's all about your own creative problem solving. I think creativity is such a key thing, like what you did with that estate sale. So probate is basically, so somebody had died and they were selling their house, right? Yeah. Same thing. You were being creative. You were solving that problem for them. Anytime you can do that, it's not to say there's one right or wrong way, but just get it done and make it work for everybody. And it's a win, right? So, on that note, I want to, we're a little bit over time here. So I just wanted to take a moment and ask you, if somebody wanted to learn a little bit more about you and what you're doing, what's the best way for them to reach you?
So there's a couple of ways. People can go to the YouTube channel, Revenue with Real Estate, which is the YouTube channel. Our website is rentalhouseprofits.com. And likewise, anyone can just reach out to me. I'm pretty accessible most of the time. I think the joys of real estate is you do have flexibility in your time. I mean, the fact that I can sit here and not be rushing off to a job.
That's great.
I still work 40 hours a week. I just choose those 40 hours.
Same.
So, if someone wants to reach out to me, I can take half an hour out of my day, have a conversation. Like, we could probably sit here and talk for 4 hours about real estate back and forth. Yeah. So I enjoy talking about it. I enjoy helping other people solve their problems as well. It's kind of where I don't want to say my giving back. That sounds a bit corny, but I enjoy when people phone up and go, I'm kind of stuck. Can you help? And you can help. And I don't charge for that. I don't know if I'm going to get a million phone calls now.
Yeah.
I actually enjoy doing that. It helps me keep me on my toes. And some people will present problems that I've never thought of before when they reach out. And all of a sudden now I'm going to apply that in my own business. So there is a mutually beneficial way to helping other people solve their problems as well. It's not a totally selfless thing that we do.
That's one of the reasons I love networking with other investors, because they have a different problem. You have a different problem, and together you guys combine your knowledge and you just bridge that gap. It's great.
And there's always someone who's done it. There's there's nothing new we're doing. There's always somebody done it. And if you ask most people, they'll share that information free.
Yeah, absolutely. Most people love to talk about what they do. Yeah. Okay. So a couple of questions for you. Favorite real estate based book?
Oh, I've got two. So the first one, I think the Rich Dad Poor Dad. I think everybody reads that because the concept, it just confirms in your mind that you think it's right. Actually, three: Canadian Real Estate by Don Campbell and More Than Cash Flow by Julie Broad. So Don, because it's so simple, down to earth. This is it. It shouldn't be exciting. That's what I like about that. It's just, follow this, do it smart, take your time. It's not a get rich quick. It's to create wealth over time. Yes. And then I like Julie's More Than Cash Flow because it kind of highlights the industry and where the sharks are and what to watch out for. So, I mean, I probably spent $30,000, $40,000 on education, whereas I could have read that book and I would have saved that $30,000, $40,000.
Absolutely.
Those three books for sure.
That's awesome. Okay. What's your favorite vacation destination?
Oh, now it's the next one.
The next one?
Wherever I'm going.
The next one? Okay.
I'm kind of spoiled. I've been to over 100 countries in the world, so I've kind of seen a lot in the Royal Navy for 11 years.
Oh, okay.
Places. And I think everywhere is beautiful for its own reason.
Yeah.
I'm always, wherever I'm going next, that's my favorite vacation because it's the one you're looking forward to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm very keen. I've been to Austria so many times because my fiance's family's from there, and we just keep going back. One of my favorite places. But I'm interested in seeing some new ones now.
I think Vancouver Island. I mean, I emigrated here because I had a holiday when I was 16. Had a holiday on Sprout Lake and thought I want to live here one day. And it was almost 22 years to the day I bought a house on the lake. Overlooking where I'd spent that holiday. So, and that was because of real estate.
Yeah, you live in a beautiful spot. I haven't been on the island. I've been to BC, been to Vancouver. I'd love to get out there because the whole province is just insane. Yeah, definitely. I have to make it out there sometime.
Maybe we'll come down. We'll get out on the lake. We'll take the boat out. We'll go cruising.
Sounds wonderful. I'll be right there. Anyways, okay. So if anyone wants to reach me, Instagram or Facebook at the Andrew Hines, easiest way. Reach out. I'd love to connect. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast and share this episode so more people can hear about what Gary's doing. Obviously, you have an interesting story. There's a lot people can learn from this conversation. And I really appreciate everyone listening. And I really appreciate you, Gary, for coming on the show.
No, thank you for having me. It's been awesome. And I would like to reiterate, this podcast, I only started listening to it after you had John on, a guy that we were connected with. And it's awesome. Like, there are so many great points in there, even stuff, I've been around a while and I've listened to your podcast and I've probably picked up 7 or 8 top tips just from what I've listened to that I've wrote down, and I'm like, hey, this is coming in our business. So thank you for putting it on. It's awesome.
Oh, it's like free education, right? I'm there. I'm asking these questions because I'm interested, man. Like, even if I've heard it before, I want to hear it again. Tell me again, because you know what? It sinks in. It really does. So
it's like the hockey player. If you want to be a pro, you're not good because of the amazing things you do. You're good because you do the simple things exceptionally well. And it's the same in real estate.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate the kind words. That was really great. Okay, we'll stay in touch, obviously, and get you on the show again sometime.
Thanks, Andrew. Have an amazing day.
You too. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.